I lived in India and Malaysia, and I was completely fine. And then when I moved back during the pandemic is when I started to be really sick. I already stopped the gluten completely, so why is this still happening? And then I did this like food group test, and I realized that I had another like 5 foods that I was intolerant to. The bigger problem is that it attacks your immune system, so then that can have, like bigger consequences. After I came back, I caught this virus, so like it took a week for me to properly get back to eating at least basic things. I went out and I realized that I couldn't speak properly. It's like zero tolerance to the things that we are sensitive to, and make other people understand that it's not just food poisoning, It's hard, like it can really take a toll on us emotionally as well.
Welcome to the FUT Talks again, and today I'm happy to be with Annamaria from Hungary, that unfortunately we couldn't meet when I was living in Budapest, but she agreed to have this meeting online. And I'm so happy to have you here with us today and to share your experience with celiac disease, and I don't know if other allergies, because we have not had time to discuss a lot earlier. But please introduce yourself, and then we get into the topic, and also explain a bit how you found out that you have celiac disease, and how was the process of this change in the diet?
Okay, sure. So yeah, thanks for having me, first of all. um, so I'm Annamaria, and I'm a copywriter and also a singer-songwriter. And yeah, so basically, I found out 4 years ago that I'm gluten intolerant. So it's not celiac, it's like a different type of sensitivity.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so basically, I lived abroad for 6 years. I lived in India and Malaysia, and I was completely fine. So literally, I ate like street food in Indian villages and like the spiciest things, and I never had an issue. And then when I moved back during the pandemic is when I started to be really sick, and like for at least half a year it was going on, so I didn't know like what is causing it, even though my sister and my mom is also gluten intolerant, so that could have given a clue, but my awareness was not much about how to go fully like off gluten at the time. So I thought if you just don't eat pizza and pasta and bread, you're good. And then I realized that everything in my fridge has gluten in traces. So then I started to like cut out these foods, and I started healing. So it was mostly through elimination diet and also like family history. I did go to the hospital. They did the what you call in English? Basically, this scan.
Yeah, the endoscopy that put a
Yeah,
tube inside with a camera. Yeah.
yeah. And they basically lost my results and didn't get back to me for 2 months. And then, okay, you get another appointment in 2 months. So it just like kept dragging on. And then in the meantime, my sister, who is sensitive, and the doctor, she was telling me like just try it for 2 weeks to just go zero, like zero tolerance gluten, and it helped. Like, and before that, I tried everything else. So it was yeah, basically just realizing that it was the gluten, and then basically maybe like 6 months later, I felt like I'm still having some issues, and I didn't get it like I already stopped the gluten completely, so why is this still happening? And then I did this like food group test when they measured ICG, I think, like basically based on the blood, they tell you your like partial or full sensitivities. And then I realized that I had another like 5 foods that I was intolerant to, so I had to cut those out as well.
And
And
as
this,
sorry, Anna Maria, which are these foods? Because so how did you manage to get the results from that endoscopy, from that test? And how was your intestine and which was the blood indicators? Just to understand, because um for me it's like celiac disease and gluten sensitivity. The gluten intolerance is a bit blur to me. So if you could please share what the doctors told you or what you know about it, so I can understand better.
right, yeah. So the endoscopy, unfortunately, I never got the results from them. So that part was like realizing through elimination diet and also researching a lot about it and realizing that there are different types of gluten intolerance and that for some people the blood test shows the positive that you are intolerant, and for some people for some reason the blood test is not effective. So with the gluten, it was this, and then with the other foods, so it's tomato, oats, all the legumes, and seafood. And then they were like also showing, it was also showing yeast and garlic, but to be honest, I haven't like really noticed a problem with those. I don't use them in my own kitchen, but I don't fuss about it when I go out in a restaurant. And I also know that these kind of food group tests, they can show you false positives sometimes. It's not entirely reliable. Like some dietitians and doctors don't even accept it as something legit. I got it done in a private clinic. So yeah, those were the ones that it, and also what is this like a type of wheat, this durum wheat? Um,
I don't know. Yeah.
sorry, I don't know if it's something different in English, but it was showing a certain type of wheat that was in the list, but it wasn't showing gluten, which didn't make sense to me.
Okay.
So yeah, it was not like 100% accurate, and it was also like they only had one category like testing legumes, and I'm fine with chickpeas, for example, but I cannot eat lentils and beans, so it's like it wasn't detailed enough to break it down for me specifically, more specifically than this.
So
Yeah.
so you went on trial error, mainly with these other food groups to identify which you could eat and which you couldn't.
So this one, I just got the results, and first I was skeptical because I was like, "There's no way!" Like I had tomatoes my whole life, and I love it. Like I lived in India for 2 years. There's tomato in all the curries. Like, come on, and then I tried, and I was sick. So I was like, "Damn, it really is true." And the same with the oats. So then because if you just do elimination diet yourself, it's really hard to separate everything. Like I have acquaintances who are sensitive to the smoked paprika spice or like something like a really tiny ingredient in the food, so you cannot really separate things that easily to realize, yeah, what is it on your plate that's not agreeing with you.
Mhm. And what are the symptoms? So for gluten, you have like bloated belly, or you feel tired, or how do you feel about this different foods? So gluten and the seafood and the lentils, well, the legumes and so on.
Hmm. So for me, the symptoms are actually quite similar, but with the gluten, it's more serious because if there is gluten in traces in my food, even then I will be sick, whereas I can pick off the tomatoes from my salad and I'm gonna be okay. But if I eat it, then no. So it's more the amount, but basically my symptoms for me, it's like this stomach pain. Like I wake up in the middle of the night as well, that it's hurting and like nausea and like this lethargy and chronic fatigue. Like I'm feeling like super tired. Yeah, like depends on how strong my immune system is at the time and the quantity, but maybe for a few days. It depends, yeah, how strong I am. Yeah.
Okay, so you come back from Asia, India and Malaysia, you said, surviving there to their street food
Yeah.
and so on, and all of a sudden you come back to Hungary
Mm.
and your diet becomes strongly restricted, I would say. How did you
Mhm.
feel about it, and how was the process of adapting to this new way of eating? And not only for you, but also to your partner or whoever is living with you or around you, your friends,
Mhm.
etc.
Yeah. Um, it was like from one side, it was not the first time that I started paying conscious attention to labels. So that was the what was helping me, because a few years before that I did this online course about basically like conscious eating and which type of food is doing what to the body, to just educate myself. And yeah, the biggest long-term takeaway from that was to check labels, because I think unless you're educated on this, you people don't pay attention to what they put into their bodies. They buy things from the shelves, and if it's written that it's healthy, then they think it's healthy. And if you look closely to the label, then you may realize that it's just some food industry propaganda. It may have additives. Maybe it looks healthy because it's vegan, but it's actually full of nasty stuff. So it's not that simple, and it's not so binary. Is it healthy or not? There's also not universally healthy foods for you, because our bodies are simply different. So yeah, I had this kind of experience, so that made it a little bit easier. But of course, it was still a big adjustment. Like I love pastries, I love Hungarian food. Like it's full of gluten. And yeah, so I had to switch from this to eliminate these things. It's much easier to do it in my own kitchen, because I live alone and I know exactly what I cook with. And yeah, I check the labels and the ingredients. We had to like tell grandma and like help the family get used to it, which was a bit more difficult. But since my mom and my sister got it before me, it was also like not new. I just kind of joined them. But yeah, we had to like teach her that you cannot put the same spoon into those plates, because then it's cross-contaminated already. So we had to like, yeah, make the family understand this and pay attention. Um, the hardest part is when going out, either to a restaurant or if we have a potluck, which is very common with friends. But it's like if you're the only person who is gluten intolerant, then they won't pay attention. And when you ask, what did you put in it, then they will tell you like generally what's in it, but they might not mention like, oh yeah, actually I put a spoon of flour, I forgot, because I wanted to thicken the stew. Or like they might not have awareness of this, that little things count. So then you end up with eating what you have brought only because you're not so sure and you don't want to risk it. So really, like potluck dinners is the hardest. Then in the restaurant, at least it depends. Like, I think Hungary is pretty good with this. So I'm relatively lucky that it happens here. It also might not be by chance, but there are quite a few places. I mean, not that many compared to how many mixed places are, but at least there are some options where they know about it and they will pay attention to it. But when I 2 years ago, I traveled to Asia just kind of as visiting back because I had to leave really like suddenly during the pandemic, and I visited some friends, and it was the first time for me to like travel long distance, being sensitive. And then I would call the restaurant in advance just to be sure of like, do you offer gluten-free food? And they're like, sorry ma'am, what's gluten? They're like, they don't know, because in Asia it's not a thing. Like it's not so much of a staple, the all the flour stuff, as rice is. So probably for this reason, it's just so not common to have this gluten sensitivity. It's only through the tourists that they know what it is. So if you go to Bali, paradise, you'll find so many places with gluten-free food, but Kuala Lumpur, very few, if at all, because they just don't have it. So yeah.
Okay, so before starting about the trips, that it's mainly the thing of the project. Um, Tell me a bit more about Hungary because this potluck thing I didn't know. And for example, I lived in Budapest for 3 months this year. Well, between this year and the end of last year to spend winter and so on. And I was so happy to be there because the options are bigger than I expected, I have to say. But how is it out of Budapest? Have you been around Hungary? Because I don't know if you live in Budapest or if you live outside. But for example, if you go to I don't know, the east of the country, is it also easy there, or it's only easy in big cities where there are also a lot of people and expats, for example?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, I don't travel a lot to the countryside, to be honest. I live in the Buda side of Budapest. I know there are some places in Szentendre because my mom works there. I used to go to school there. But that place is pretty touristy too. I don't know if that's the reason. So I'm not that aware how common it is, but I would imagine that since Budapest is the only big city, technically, it's like there's less option in regards to everything. So probably if it's proportionate to how it is here, then maybe you'll have like one place in town which is gluten free, and also it's like there are places that are 100% gluten free, and there are others where it's like they have options and they have a separate kitchen, and then there are a lot which say, okay, we have these gluten-free dishes, but our kitchen is mixed, so we cannot guarantee. So then it's like at your own risk, because yeah, it depends. Some people can take that risk because they're not that sensitive, or it's different for them. And people like us probably cannot take the risk. So there's different levels of how much the restaurant is paying attention to it. Yeah.
Yeah, the risk, at least I think for us, it's zero risk what we can accept because if not, we are just destroyed for the rest of the trip at least. And especially when you're out of home, the last thing you want is to feel bad. And let's go back to your trip to Asia again. How was it to plan this trip, not being able to eat what you already ate, and also having to think about so many other things? Because as you said, in Asia, The rice is, let's say, the main cereal on their diet, but still the soya sauce is fermented with wheat and so on, and it's they put soya sauce almost everywhere, or the
Right.
oyster sauce and so on. So how did you manage to communicate there? Do you speak their language, or you had friends who helped you, or how did you do that?
Yeah. No, I don't speak Bahasa, but it practically everybody speaks English in Kuala Lumpur and India too, for that matter, because there are like a lot of different languages in the same place. So the official language of business and one of the official languages in English. So I could be lazy, basically, not learning the language when I was living there. And like this time around, when I visited, when I was in KL, I was at a friend's place. So that helped because I could shop in the supermarket, vegetables, meat, eggs, always the safe option, and make my own food. There was one place which I found one item on the menu, like in a cafe that was gluten-free, and I had no issues. There was another one that I knew from before that it was 100% because I actually had a celiac roommate at the time. I just had no idea that one day I'm going to be on the other side. To be honest, I'm guilty of few times offering my pastry to her, and now I feel so guilty that I'm like, I did that back then, and now I know what it feels like. So yeah, I knew these places. We also went to a Japanese place with my friend, where it's kind of like you order different small dishes and the soy sauce is separate, so they don't mix it in. So yeah, Japanese cuisine can be good for that. If things are deep fried, that's probably not good. But I did get glutened once, and it was actually not in a restaurant, but I got millet from the supermarket, and there was nothing written on it. It was just like 100% millet. And so in Hungary, they have this regulation that if it contains traces because it was manufactured in the same factory, you have to indicate it on the label. But I didn't know that in Asia they don't have this regulation, and I got super sick, and I didn't even know that it was because of that. So I ate twice, and well, it was just not good. Like I was feeling super like weak after that and sick. So yeah, that's how I learned that, oops, the labels don't mean anything in this sense in Asia. So you have to be careful, and if the waiter is like just smiling at you and like sure, but you can tell that they don't know what you're talking about, they probably don't know what you're talking about. So yeah, these things you have to pay attention to. I spent yeah, the first half of my trip in Kuala Lumpur, and then I went to Bali, and then it was just easy because Bali meant like everywhere it's full of places with gluten-free and vegan and like all the other options.
There it's indicated that you can find it indicated on the restaurant, or that they have options, or if it's 100% gluten free or not.
Yeah, they do actually, and yeah, they indicate if it's fully gluten-free. You can ask about the kitchen. They tell you if it's organic. Like Bali is super like paying attention to this because it's most people are tourists. I mean, at least in these areas like Canggu, Seminyak, like those like very touristic areas, and that's most of the revenue of the island. So they really pay attention to this. So it's easy to go there.
That's so cool. And for example, for your next trip, where are you planning to go? And do you think you will need something specific to do in advance, or do you look for information in blogs or you contact touristic information points? How would you go, I don't know, to uh, Indonesia if you would have to choose a place? I don't know.
Hmm. Like other parts of Indonesia, it would probably be more challenging. Like now that I've learned all this after going back. Yeah, I think blogs are a great source because it's usually written by a person who has the same issue and they go into details as to um, like, yeah, like what the waiter told them, how flexible they were, and so they have really like first-hand experience. So I think that's pretty reliable because I also sometimes try to cut corners and search on Google Maps, gluten-free, whatever, but then it's not accurate. So I need to like go into the restaurant's website and the menu, and even then it's like it's hard to find information about things. So yeah, if you go to these areas where it's not so known what's gluten sensitivity, then it's difficult to find information. Although in some places, like if you travel in Asia, I also find that they're more flexible, they are super nice, and have good hospitality. And if you explain to them that this is the issue that you have, then they might make your food in a separate pan and pay attention to yeah, making it gluten-free for you, because they might not fuss so much about like this is the procedure. um, I mean, if you go to big cities and restaurants, then yeah, probably there's less flexibility there. But like in the hotel I stayed in Bali, it was not like an official restaurant or anything, but I went at the time of Balinese New Year, 21st, 22nd of March. And it's like a day of curfew, so you cannot leave your accommodation because it's a day of silent prayer and reflection for the Balinese. And so I had to just eat whatever they could give me. So I explained it to the lady in the kitchen that I have this thing, and then she was just really understanding. Like it was like family, like she paid attention. She was super nice. So yeah, it's like pros and cons with traveling far, but my next trip is to London, so I don't expect that it will be so difficult because
Oh,
it's a
yeah.
big city.
And England is quite good, I think, for gluten-free as well, or at least it was the times that I was there. There are many chains that have options, and they do it pretty well, I think. I think, yeah, we'll see. Hopefully, everything goes well for you and you can enjoy the city. So,
Yeah.
just to start finalizing, I will ask you for first if you could share one or two anecdotes about traveling with all these allergies and so on. And for closing, an advice that you could offer after all the learnings that you have got with all this experience to somebody who faces the same situation that you after having traveled to, I would say, extreme countries in terms of food, like India. And street food in India, it's not something that everybody with a normal stomach, let's say, can do. How did you adapt to this diet, and what would be your advice to do it smooth?
Yeah. Okay, so this is more like I just wanted to add it. It was more like after I came back from this Asia trip to Hungary, because I think it might be worth mentioning that when you get gluten in your system, then it's not just those few days that are uncomfortable, but it can have long-term consequences. So basically, this thing happened in my Asia trip, and then I came back home, and like my body recovers, and I can rebuild myself. But the thing is that it it takes an attack on your immune system, and then it's just easier to catch anything. And even though it was like beginning of summer, so it's not like flu season or anything, after I came back, I caught this virus, which just makes you like throw up all the time. And for the first like day or two, I couldn't even hold down water because I was just like puking water basically. And after that, I couldn't eat. So, like, it took a week for me to properly get back to eating at least basic things that are easy on the stomach. And I thought that, okay, I'm better now. I'm just gonna like go run some errands. And I went out and I realized that I couldn't speak properly. And I didn't notice this before because I was like tired. So I was just like texting with family and friends. And I got so scared, and I went to the ER. Luckily, my sister works at the ER, so she could help me like get in and have tests. And they did like a brain scan and everything, and it was all negative. So like they couldn't find anything. And then my sister put me on the IV, and I could feel like my life is coming back to me because probably I was severely dehydrated. So I was like slowly recovering, and in a few days, with some speech exercises, I got back my ability to speak. But this incident was so unexpected and so scary that you would not expect. Like, even the doctors were like, this is not something we've seen before. And doing all the tests, nothing is showing. And it was not like there wasn't anything wrong with my vocal cords, or like I could perfectly understand everyone, but somehow this side of my brain just shut down, or I don't know, like I could not form the words that I wanted to say. And I mean, don't get scared. This is a really extreme example, but I'm just trying to say that it's like we think of this as, oh, you ate something bad, poor you, like few days and you'll be fine. But the bigger problem is that it attacks your immune system. So then that can have, like bigger consequences to catch what's going around, or it's harder to rebuild. Yeah, so that's why we have to take it very seriously, that it's like zero tolerance to the things that we are sensitive to, and make other people understand that it's not just food poisoning, it's not the
Yeah,
same
and
thing.
and also especially to somebody like you that you live out of your voice somehow, no? About the song right and
That was the scariest thing.
yeah, I can
I
imagine.
was thinking, oh my God. Yeah, yeah, that was scary.
Wow. Okay.
Mm.
Yeah, I'm so shocked. I knew it could have long-term consequences, but more related to the bowel and also maybe some kind of cancer in the end after being exposed for so long. But
Yeah.
yeah, this is really shocking and it shows how serious it has to be taken. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's so different for everybody because um, it's not one type of gluten intolerance, and even with the tests, some might not be shown in a blood test and others are. So it's so far very under-researched, and that is an issue because, of course, the market adapts to it because they want to earn money. So they are going to cater to your needs and sell you gluten-free food, which is not even necessarily healthy. It's just gluten-free. So like we need to educate ourselves and hope that the research will catch up with time. Yeah, because now what we know is quite limited. Actually, most people, as far as I know, who have these immunity issues, including intolerance, are women, but we don't know why. So, like, they cannot make these connections there. It's just like still taking baby steps, the research. We know that immunity is tied to the gut because your microbiome, etc. We know that it's tied to the hormonal system, like it can really mess up women's cycle. So I see a naturopath regularly, and she helps me rebuild my immunity, and she helped me regulate my cycles because they went on to like 40 something or 60 days even at times, and it was really uncomfortable, and this would cause mental health issues, just being really tired. So it's all very connected, but these are so delicate systems, the gastrointestinal and the hormonal, and how these communicate. But from the start she told me, you don't have a hormonal issue, you have an immunity issue. And then when I told her all these intolerances, she's like, well, now it makes sense. So she always approached it from that perspective. So I'm just really hoping that this will get more funding and attention in the future, and we're gonna know more about this. Maybe even cure it one day, I don't know, or at least we're gonna have more options, like for us to eat safely, because it's hard. Like it can really take a toll on us emotionally as well. Like it is a real loss that we experience as a shadow loss, because we don't think that it's a serious issue, but it's basically food you loved your whole life, and then you don't have access to it anymore. You're constantly reminded of it because you see it everywhere. Your friends are eating it in front of your face. So it's like it does have this like emotional side of it, which I think is not talked about a lot. It's mostly just us trying to support each other in this journey and tell each other the tips and where to go to eat. And yeah. So
Yeah, that's so true. The social part, it's the most tricky. First of all, because people don't think about it when
mhm.
and you've been in both sides, no? You didn't think of it when you had the celiac flatmate, and now you experience that your friends don't think about it, and in a potluck you end up eating what you brought, which is not the goal of the potluck. That I think it's about sharing and being together instead of being in tension that nobody puts the spoon in your food or so on. And
Mhm.
this takes a lot of energy and, as you said, a lot of emotions. Yeah. So, Ana Maria, before going to the advice, we've been focused a lot on the gluten that maybe it can be seen of one of the trickiest, especially when you travel to countries where they don't know it. But you said also that you cannot eat tomato or legumes and so on. That, for example, as we mentioned before, in India, almost every curry has tomato. Um, how is to explain this to these countries where they don't even know sometimes what an allergy is because where they don't have it or they don't know they have it?
Mhm. Yeah. Well, that's quite tricky. Yeah, tomato is particularly tricky one with like Italian and Indian cuisines. Um, I found a restaurant in Hungary where they were just adaptable. So I told them I cannot have tomatoes. Can you make something for me? And they gave me like a chicken curry without it. It was not bad. I mean, I would not say it was the real thing, but but at least I got something, and it was. I mean, it was pretty good. It was still Indian food, so it was good. So yeah, it's hard with the tomatoes because it's one of those things that they just mix in everything, the sauce. Um, a lot of recipes have it too. So even if I want to make it at home, then I'm like, there's nothing I can substitute it with because it's not gonna be the same. Um, so I have not been to India since I got this. So I honestly don't know how I would manage there. Like my options would probably be pretty limited. With oats, it's more like the oat flour, I think, that they usually put into all the gluten-free stuff because that's what they swap it with, like especially for cakes. So it depends, but I again just need to check ingredients lists because then if it says gluten-free, that doesn't automatically mean that it doesn't have oats, for example. Um, but I don't know. It's the test just told me these generic things that I have like intolerance to. But for example, I when I drink, they have this like pea milk, like milk they make out of peas, and I haven't experienced an issue with that. With oat milk, I don't buy it for my home, but it's like very slight discomfort that I would experience drinking it. But if I go to a cafe where that's the only alternative milk they have, which is actually common in Hungary, maybe it's the best for baristas, I don't know, then I will order it and it's fine. And I think it's because in a whole bottle of oat milk, they have up to 2% of oats. So in your cup, that's gonna be like what 0.2. So it's like basically traces, and the oats and tomato and stuff, for me it's like a partial intolerance. So if you have traces, it's not so serious as if you eat the thing. So yeah, with like oat milk, that's kind of different. Yeah, but I'm not sure I can offer a lot of hope with this specific thing. Like, I don't know how I would manage if I go to India right now, because of the not so much awareness about it, and because it's just so common in the Indian cuisine. So, I mean, I feel like I'm still grieving it, to be honest, because that's the best food in the world, like Indian food, and I enjoyed my time so much there. I was there for 2 years, and yeah, now it would be quite complicated, even though they're the most helpful, hospitable people, and they really try to like listen and understand. But there is some language barrier too if you like go to India and try to explain your various limitations in your diet. So it's quite difficult if you go to a restaurant. Maybe if you go to an auntie's house and you tell her, then she will make something for you. That's an exception.
Okay, that's so interesting. Thank you so much, Ana Maria. And now, yes, for the closing, what's your advice to somebody who faces the same situation than you faced? After traveling to such amazing places, you come back to your home, then you start feeling sick, and then you realize that your diet goes from being able to eat everything to more restricted options. So, what would you tell this person to say, hey, it's possible to do it?
Yeah, like I think I would just tell them to be gentle with yourself, and I try to be as well with myself because it is hard to constantly try to adapt yourself to just meet your basic needs. I think a lot of people who never had a special diet and start off with this gluten-free journey, they go to a restaurant and they might feel very uncomfortable that you have to be that person at the table who like needs to ask things 5 times and like make people uncomfortable and just make people uncomfortable. Like you have your own needs, everybody have their own needs, and you would not mind if your friends have different needs and you have to like accommodate them. You also have to be patient because maybe some people will take a while until they remember, like maybe I have close friend who we've been friends for years, and she knows about my like gluten sensitivity because we traveled together, and she still mentions these anecdotes of like, oh, you remember we went to Paris and then the waiter was mocking me like, haha, water, you want water, it's gluten free, and I'm like, what the hell. So rude. It's French humor, I guess. And then, yeah, and then maybe she gets me something from her home country, and it's made out of flour. So I'm like, thank you, but like I can't have it. So yeah, be patient with yourself and be patient with other people, and yeah, with the communication, because it will take a lot of communication and negotiation and adapting and reading the labels. And yeah, it's difficult because you have to let go of some foods that you really loved, and have this inconvenience with social situations and stuff, and it does take a lot of energy. So I think just try to be gentle with yourself and maybe make some gluten-free friends, because that makes things easier.
So, Ana Maria, thanks a lot for sharing your experience, for being so open about your emotions as well, because in the end, food is not only to survive, but it's also to socialize and also to, it's a kind of pleasure, I would say. And as Ana Maria said, be gentle with yourself, make people uncomfortable, because if they would be the ones asking, you wouldn't mind. And this is one of the most and the best advices I have heard on the interviews, because it's so true. I mean, you feel uncomfortable for asking many times to the waiter, for sending him or her back to the kitchen to ask for more and to adapt the dishes and so on. But in the end, these are your needs. You need to take care of your body, of your health. If not, you will not enjoy anything you're doing, and also the people who are with you will not enjoy what you are doing together. And if you go to Asia, check and pay attention to the labels, and if you don't see it clear, don't buy it, because as you had this problem with the millet, this can ruin the trip again. Ana Maria,
Yeah.
thanks again for your time, for your patience about the Zoom meeting way of working, and for sharing your experience that for sure it will bring a lot of light to many people hearing to our
Yeah.
conversation today.
Thanks so much for having me. And thanks for doing this. It's so cool. Yeah.